Recording. Oh,
Live.
and
I
we
have
are
live on
live.
my end.
So,
All
welcome to
right.
this inaugural test broadcast of We the Meeples. Um, Hi, Mike.
How you doing, Ray?
We'll see what this ends up looking like once it hits YouTube.
Right.
So, this is going to be our live cast, broadcast, webcast. Something that we should straighten out exactly what we're calling it before we actually get to the point where we actually hopefully have people paying attention.
I agree completely. Um,
We'll work out a
all right,
split.
hold on a sec. I'm getting a little bit of lag, so let me see something really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Going to change my bandwidth settings to turn it down a bit. Okay, let's do that.
Looking pretty fuzzy on my end.
All right, do that.
It's a little sharper.
Then we can focus. Run it as an enhanced. Alright, that is probably the best it's going to get for now.
Alrighty. Take what we can get.
Alright.
So, Mike, you want to talk about a game or something?
Sure, well, let's, since this is just kind of just a general hangout, how was your weekend and what'd you get to play this weekend? This past weekend, I should say.
This past weekend, what did happen this past weekend? Um, I don't think I got to get much gaming in this past weekend. I did, you know what I did get to do was yesterday I got to um, break out Robot Turtles with my kids.
Okay.
Which Robot Turtles is probably a game that you haven't heard about because it was a fairly it was a Kickstarter game that was did really well, but it hasn't made it into distribution yet.
I've heard about the Kickstarter. I haven't heard anything else other than it was on Kickstarter, so.
Yeah, it's a game that's designed for kids. I think the box says 3 to 10 or 3 to 8 or something like that.
Okay.
And what it is it was initially designed to introduce concepts of computer programming to kids.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, and the way that it works is that it has a board with it's an 8 by 8 board with squares, um, and each corner there's a starting spot for one of the turtles, which are represented by tiles, and the each there's 4 colors, and each turtle has their own set of cards, and the cards have different instructions on them. Things like
Hmm.
move forward, turn left, turn right, uh, as well as a couple others. Like there's a laser card, and there's a function frog card, and then one bug card. And then what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to set up like sort of a little maze for the turtle to go through with a crystal that they're supposed to collect at the end of it. And then you have ice walls and regular stone walls and boxes, all of which have slightly different behaviors. For instance, the ice wall you can melt with the laser. The stone walls are just completely impassable, and the boxes the turtles can push if there's an empty space behind them. And so the way that you play is that the kids, the players, they're called the turtle master, and
Hmm.
they're turtles on the board, and then they basically get to pick one of their cards, and it's just all the cards are available, the whole stacks of them. Pick a card for the instruction that they want to do for that turn, and then as the turtle mover, that's the usually the adult running the game, actually
Hmm.
reaches down and moves the turtle in the accordance to the instruction that the turtle master gave, and then you make all sorts of neat, funny sounds and stuff like that as the turtle's moving, and the kids can then progress through the maze, one instruction at a time to start,
Hmm.
until they can maneuver the turtle through it to the crystal. Um, and so it sort of teaches them, this is the instruction that you put out is what's going to be done, even if it doesn't really work very well. If they put a go straight where they need to do a turn, you just bump them into the wall, and it doesn't work. And then you have this bug card, and they can tap the bug card to take the last instruction back, and you can rewind the instruction set a little bit until they get back to where they want to start up again. And so to start, they just basically take whatever path they want, but you can try to encourage them to try to, all right, find the shortest path. How can you do this with less instructions? You can set up some pretty tricky mazes too, and then as it goes on, they can start doing more than one instruction at a time. All right, do 3 at once, and then we'll execute 3 at a time. Finally, all the way up to the function frog card, which is you put that one of those aside with a set of instructions next to it, and then whenever they want to do that set of instructions, they just play one function frog, and it do all 3 of those instructions, sort of like a function in programming.
Okay.
And my kids love it. I mean, when we first broke it out, man, they were all over it. And we haven't gotten around to playing it much recently, just because there's a lot to do. But we got it out again here, and the kids are having a great time with it. And that's robot.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. It sounds kind of like a Ricochet robot thing. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I mean, you can have up to 4 players going at once, and you can make a maze like for all of them to go through. They start in opposite corners, so they're not necessarily bouncing off each other too much. But usually just have them take turns. Although there are, and I haven't looked at them yet, but there are sort of adult rules. They call them Galapagos rules that make it actually a competitive game that's can be interesting for adults. I really need to research those because it might be fun to break that out for one of the game nights and see how it goes.
That's really
and
cool.
then it's it's just a Kickstarter game that this guy did for fun, and pretty nice production. Everything's tiles. There's no like figures or anything, but it's pretty nice quality, a nice board and everything. But then it got picked up, I think, by ThinkFun to be actually published later this year. I think in the summer they're anticipating having it come out. So should get a wider distribution then, and it's just great for the kids. I mean, I've played it with my 6-year-old and 5-year-old, or he was 4-year-old when he was first started playing it, and they were able to really get the hang of it quick. And then I sort of tried with my 2, almost 3-year-old, but that didn't go so well. He didn't have the time span for it, and didn't really quite understand what he was supposed to do. So now we just usually have him hang around and watch, and try him on it again before too long.
All right, that's really cool. Really cool.
You, Mike? What have you been up to?
To be honest, I didn't get a lot of gaming in this weekend. I did play. Let's see. Looking at my game collection, I did get a game of Wiz War. I picked up the expansion for that, and that's a good game by Fantasy Flight. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's a reprint. This is the 8th edition, I believe. So they've done it quite a few times. But it's essentially dueling wizards, and there's a bunch of different decks of spells. So kind of like a Mage Wars type thing, except more comedic in a way. And essentially all you're trying to do is get through this different type of maze to get to your opponent's treasure. Each player has their own base, per se, and all you're trying to do is go get the treasure and bring it back to your base. But in the meantime, people are throwing spells, they're casting, fireballs and ice balls and rocks. There's also, you can set traps and stuff like that. And so it's a lot of player interaction, a lot of fun. And like I said, I just picked up the expansion, which adds a 5th player and a few different new spell decks, if you will. The cool thing about it is there, I believe, is now 8 or 9 spell decks. And what you do in the beginning of the game is you have a base spell deck that you always use typically, and then you can add 2 other decks of whatever kind you want. And there's necromancy, there's conjuring items, there's transformation. So there are all these different really interesting decks that you can combine and mix together to make the spell deck, and then everyone gets a handful of cards from that spell deck that you all created from those different spell books, if you will. And that's just a really cool aspect of that game. It adds a lot of replayability and a lot of variation. But that was a lot of fun. And then I also recently, a couple of weeks ago, got Guildhall, the Job Fair expansion, and played some of that this past weekend. And that's really good. Add some interesting and new abilities, and I love that you can mesh it with the first one. So it's not a standalone really, but you can play it as a standalone. So that's really cool. And then
So with
recently in the
Guildhall,
mail.
that
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, with Guildhall, that you have a certain number of those card sets that you put in there. So when you're doing the expansion, you're basically almost like a Dominion type thing where I'm gonna pick these ones to fill these slots that need to go into that main deck, right? You don't just mash all the cards together.
No, that's correct. There is what they call occupations, and there is 6 of them in each set, in the base set and in the expansion. And so typically you play with 6 occupations. So I do own both. So the first game we played just with the expansion, and then the second game after that we played with 2 or 3 from the first set, and then mashed them with 2 or 3 from or 3 from the other set. So you can mash them together. And you can mix and match, but typically it's only 6 occupations per game. So yeah, I mean, it gives you a whole nother 6 options with that expansion. So that's really nice.
There'd be a lot of combinations that you could get in there.
Oh, exactly, exactly. And I mean, they say in the rulebook actually that you could mix them all together and make a giant game, but I feel like that'd be way too much of a headache. So, and
Longer than you want your guild hall to go.
yeah, exactly. It's a great game. The player interaction it's not strong. It's subtle, but it's still really interactive. And then there's a lot of pre-planning, if you will. So you're really trying to figure out what you're going to do the next turn and the next turn. And then you want to build up that guild hall with so many different colors and so many different people. And so you're always trying to figure out what your best options are, and then that all could change within somebody else's turn because they could steal somebody from your guild hall and change your whole strategy. So it's a really cool aspect of that game. And then in the mail today, I got Oddville, which was a SN 2012 release. Not very popular.
Yeah,
And that one, no, it's from What's My Game, a company that I've never heard of before, but a friend of mine recommended the game, so thought I'd pick it up. And in that game, you're essentially playing cards in order to do actions, and you have four cards that have 3 different options on each card. It's either gold, resource, or I believe the third one is something that falls along buying buildings. I'm sorry. And so all 4 different cards have, one card gives you 1 gold, 1 card gives you 2 gold, etc., etc. And same with resources. One will give you 1 resource, another will give you the possibility of picking one or the other, and then etc., etc. And so what you're doing is each turn you're playing one of those cards, and you're getting that ability. You pick either coin, gold, or buildings. And you take one of those abilities and execute that. And then after that, that card goes into a discard, and so you're left with fewer options. And so you do get the cards back eventually, but that's later on. So it gives you the thinkiness, if you will, of what cards do I play now, what cards do I play later, and then what you're doing is you're building a city. So you're buying these buildings that will give you special abilities and victory points, and you're managing your resources all in the means of that because you're using those 4 cards, your 4 personal cards, to get the resources or to get gold to buy buildings and stuff like that, or to actually just play the buildings as well. And so it adds a lot of different multiple card effect abilities, similar to Glory to Rome or like Uchronia or stuff like that. And so I'm a huge fan of the multiple card games. I would have to say that Carl Chudik, who is the creator of Glory to Rome, and also Uchronia, and he also made Innovation. He's probably one of my top designers in my book, just due to the fact that he has innovated that mechanic so well and incorporated that so well into his games. And that's something I love. I love having those options with such few components, if you will. And so Oddville kind of falls along the same lines of that. I don't know the designer. I could look at it, but it has that multiple card effect ability where you can do so many things with only 4 cards, and then tailoring that to your strategy.
Right. So on your turn, you pick one to play and execute its effect, and everybody goes around, and then what? When you've played all of your cards, and you get to pick all of them back up and start over again.
Well, yes and no. If, like I said, you get 4 cards, and if you play one, and then you could just keep going on, and then when it comes back around to you, you can pick up that single card you played. However, if you want to pick up that single card you played, you have to pay 1 gold for each card that is left in your hand. So in that case, it would be 3.
Okay.
So it creates that, okay, well, I could easily pick that card right back up and play it and pick it back up and play it, but it's going to really cost you in gold. So otherwise, if you have no cards in your hand, you pick them all up for free, and you start fresh, if you will.
That's pretty neat. Yeah, I like that. I like that. That gives you a choice on how you want to execute. How much are you willing to pay to do those most beneficial actions, or are you willing to take a sort of less efficient action to sort of make the cost of picking things back up later on? That sounds pretty neat.
Yeah, and I watched some demos of it, and I watched some YouTube and read some comments, and that's it. And then, like I said, a friend basically recommended it to me because he knows how much I like that multiple card mechanism, and after reading some stuff and doing my research, I was just like, yeah, I think I'm gonna pick that up. It was only $20 if even, so
That's not bad.
yeah, which is definitely a good bargain. And then I also picked up Smash Up, the expansion, the science fiction expansion
Right.
that just came out. So I have that. I haven't opened it or anything yet. So, but I love what they do with Smash Up, where it's almost like the deck customization, but at the same time you don't have to sit there for hours, and put together a deck like in an LCG or a
Right.
CCG or along those lines. So.
Yeah, that's always a. I've always enjoyed the tactical nature of card play of something like Magic, but the deck building part I've just never felt very good at or very efficient. It feels like, all right, I'm putting this together and I don't know how this is going to work, and God, it's going to take me so long to figure it out.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'd rather just give me something that I can play with. Although I am involved in a couple of LCGs though, so I do dabble in there a little bit, but just the deck building side of it's not my favorite piece of the equation.
Right. No, and I am as well, and I agree. And that's the beautiful thing that I think that the LCG kind of brought to the picture. Because in CCGs with Magic and stuff, my friends always will have a better deck. I
Right.
don't care how hard I sit there and debate it. My friends will always have a better deck. And so with the LCG format, I feel like it's almost a little more balanced in the fact
Hmm.
that
Yeah, I agree.
everyone has the same options, and it more relies on your strategic thinking of how are these cards going to mesh together with these, and boost these, and et cetera, et cetera. So the LCG is a great format in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy it too. I've got the Lord of the Rings card game and Netrunner, and a friend of mine has Star Wars, which if you like having to choose between different ways to use a card, Star Wars is one that makes you pick between a couple of a couple of ways to use them. It's an interesting decision on, do I want to play this card for its effect, or in that case, want to play it for the edge battle, or do I want to use it for the use this card and like commit them to the force. Um, but I like the LCG format. I haven't done a ton of deck building with Netrunner yet, but with the Lord of the Rings card game, I think it brings a whole new aspect to the deck building, because you're not deck building to compete with somebody, but to cooperate with somebody. Like me and my wife will play that game, and when we're building our decks, we're thinking about how our cards can benefit each other, as well as just further our own goals for the game. So it's really neat to sort of to be collaboratively deck building, where we're at the table together. If I get like a new pack or something, we're looking at the new cards and discussing like which cards we work best for the way we have our deck set up.
No, I agree completely. I actually, yeah, I also played the Star Wars LCG, and
There you go.
I really like the mechanic that. And I haven't played Android Netrunner, and I've played Lord of the Rings before, but I played with a pre-made deck. But with the thing I like about the Star Wars deck building is that you pick you pick one you pick essentially four cards. No matter what, you're always going to get four or five, or honestly I don't remember the full number, but you have to pick a certain amount
Hmm.
of cards. You can't just pick a single. And so I like that format that you may want this one card, but you're going to get these two other ones that aren't as good, and you have to kind of work with that. And so that's a really cool balancing mechanism, in my opinion,
Right. Yeah, I
that they
really
add.
like that aspect of it too. I mean, that makes it just makes it so much less intimidating to go in and deck build, and especially I think it gives you more options just to try some of those neat cards that you know it just looks like fun to play, even if it might not be good. When you if you want to make a competitive deck in some of these other games, it's like, well, that's kind of an interesting card, but the opportunity to actually use it efficiently is so low that if you're going to build a competitive deck, you can't put it in. While with the Star Wars one, you got this block of cards. So if there's a neat card in there that maybe isn't always useful that you just want to play with, there's probably a couple other ones in there that will help even that out and keep you competitive.
Hmm.
Even trying like some of those, wanting to use some of those less than useful cards.
I agree. I agree. And other than that, that was my weekend. That was about the gist of my playing. So.
Yeah, not too bad. Besides that, I still have been playing an awful lot of Through the Ages through the Board Gaming Online website. Um, I on Sunday night actually I taught a couple of guys, more guys who heard about heard about it through the Onboard Games podcast that I did a few weeks back, and uh, and so that was neat. Got a couple more players in there. It went pretty well. Um, Seems like I've taught it probably, geez, a half dozen times now to various people trying to get opponents. And I've got plenty of people to play with now. In fact, I got one guy who was listening to it and who had knew how to play it and contacted me and said, if I wanted to play. And he knows what he's doing. He's a lot better at the game than I am, and so I'm playing against him, and it's a whole new challenge because so far, for the most part, I've only really been playing against people who I've taught, and so I've played a whole bunch more games than anybody else, and so I would tend to do better. And so now I've got somebody who really knows the game and is really showing me that I have a long way to go. Nice to be kept humble.
Yep, I agree. I can agree with that.
But having a lot of fun with Through the Ages. That one's still a good time. I've played, oh God, I've probably played over 30 games of it over the
Wow.
past 2 to 3 months through the website. It's just so easy. I can have like 6 or 8 games going at the same time. Whether that's a good
Hmm.
idea or not is completely open for debate. Um, but I've got so many games going simultaneously in parallel that I can get through a whole bunch of them. And then I play with my dad, and we get like several turns back and forth during the day, like every hour or so. Like we'll get one back and forth, and so we can crank through. I've played over 20 games with my dad alone, um, and it's just I'm definitely starting to get more familiar with it. Like that initial, you get that initial sort of drive to, oh man, I really want to play this game. It's sort of slacking off a little bit with the volume of games that I've been playing, but I'm still having a fun time with it. I love the choices that it makes has to make every turn. There's so many things to try to do and try to balance, and I guess that's what I like. I like a lot of options that a lot of decisions that you have to pick from, and it always makes it hard of how you want to spend those precious actions for that game. I don't know. I guess I didn't go through a full description of the play or anything, but it is a relatively complicated game,
Hmm.
so could be here a while. But it's a fun one. I'm really enjoying it, and it would be really neat would be to try to play it live, because all I've ever done is play it through the website, and it's you don't. It's just a different experience, playing a game remotely versus playing it live. And I can imagine that it would be a lot more headache with bookkeeping, but just the interaction would be a lot more. I feel like interesting, as you might expect, to play face to face when you actually see the person. They grab a card you want, and you can curse you, or you like do an aggression or start a war. You got to look them in the eye rather than just click a button.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I'd rather play remotely than not play at all. So.
Right. Right. That's nice. I find that that's a really nice thing about Board Game Arena and Yukata and all those other websites out there is the fact that when you don't have your friends or your game group, you always have that option.
hmm Yeah, or solo games, which I dabble in every now and then. Mostly, not really. Well, I do have one dedicated solo game, which is Friday. I don't know if you ever played that one.
Yep,
Uh,
it's on my shelf.
yeah, yeah, I've played that one a bunch, because it's quick, it's deck building, um, and you can't go wrong. Besides, I don't have many like dedicated solitaire games, but like I've played Mice and Mystics on my own. I've played several times. I've played Mage Knight. That's a really great game for playing solo. Um, and I know there's some others I can't think of right now that I've just played on my own. Oh, like Pandemic and Shadow Rift. Just when it's getting schedules matched up and getting people over to play can be tough,
Oh
and
yeah,
so
I agree.
sometimes you just want to still get the games played. You got to do it yourself.
I agree completely. I agree completely. Do you have to kind of go on a different subject? Do you have anything planned for the International Tabletop Day presented by Geek and Sundry and Will Wheaton?
Oh man, I'd love to. I've heard about various events that are, not exactly close, but within, striking distance if I had the opportunity. But um, I'm not going to be able to do very much. Hopefully we'll be able to do something. Usually Saturday nights are a night that I can game with my wife. We'll break out Lord of the Rings or something like that.
Hmm.
Uh, but unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it to any of the fun events. Like I heard about stuff going down in like a couple hours away from me near in the Lancaster area where the Secret Cabal guys are doing stuff. I
Hmm.
bet there's that probably stuff going over in Jersey too, and probably some stuff closer. Um, but I'm not going to be able to manage it because I've got a really busy day on Sunday, so I'm going to have to make sure I get a lot of other stuff done on Saturday. How about you? What
Priorities.
do you got lined up?
Well, there's a local board game store near me that is going to be throwing an event, and they're running an event from 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. And so I'm planning to at least go there for probably a little bit in the morning, maybe some in the afternoon, and get some gaming in. And I think they got some free raffles and stuff like that too, that's really cool. That's really cool. They're doing a lot of promo giveaways as far as I know. So go there, get some gaming in, and then probably do some other stuff at night. As just like you, busy schedule, and I'm still in school, so gotta gotta prioritize my time as well as I can. So
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah, I should check it. There is a comic slash gaming shop that's not that far from me, and I should check and see if they're doing anything. But even if they were, my wife would kill me if I tried to knock out the day for gaming. Um, it's just not with everything else I have going on. It's just not really in the cards.
hmm
But one of these days, be a good time.
yes, definitely. I have to say one of my best gaming one of the things I look forward to, I should say, is when the game store that I was talking about, they throw a 24-hour gaming marathon, and that's really cool. I went to it last year. I lasted 22 hours, and I went home and had to go to sleep. But I always look forward to that. This was the third year they've presented that, second or third. I believe it was second or third. Anyways, but yeah, so they're gonna start doing that on a more regular basis. Hopefully, twice a year is what I'm hoping. I've talked to a few people, but that's always an option. But those are fun because in those types of periods, you sit down and you play and you continue to play. And if you free your schedule up enough, it's really nice to only have to worry about what's my best strategy, if you will. So
Right.
that's
Yeah,
always a lot of fun.
something like that. Like I've thought about when they have the what's the charity one that they usually do in the fall. Um,
Um, I know what you're talking about
can't remember the
too.
name of it offhand right now. I'm blanking. Um, but I've thought about it would be fun to do like or attend one of those things. I've almost always been really good at staying up later than I should, so I feel like I could probably make it through a 24-hour marathon. Um, but oh man, that would be hard to manage for sure. It's just getting that
hmm
schedule and then like, okay, honey, I'm gonna go play games for 24 hours and I'll probably sleep for a good 10 or so after that. So if you could just handle all the kids and
Right.
all the stuff at the house while I'm doing that, that'd be great. What do you say? Right? Yeah? No? Oh, no. Okay, maybe not. You know,
Exactly.
when the kids are older and don't require quite as much work. Right now, we've got a lot of young kids in the house that can be a lot to manage, especially on your own.
hmm
Actually, you can
hmm
probably see their pictures in the background there on the
Oh yeah.
fireplace. But yeah, that would be a good time. It's one thing where I am. I don't really have a great game store close by. Like I said, I got a comic, uh, you know, Warhammer slash Magic shop that's not too far, but they don't really focus much on the board games. They have a few board games for sale there, but it's definitely not the focus of the store. In some ways, it's hard to blame them because they're going to make a whole lot more money with Magic and Warhammer and comics than they probably will with board games. But it would be great
Right.
to have like a real dedicated board game store
hmm
that I could get to reasonably. Like I know we do have the King of Prussia Complete Strategist that I've gone to before, but it's
hmm
probably about an hour from me from here. That is
Mm,
not not within my radius, not these days.
right.
So, well, that's why I
Well,
have to
that's
set up my
nice.
own game nights.
Right, there you go. That's the nice thing about my area. Where I live, I have 20-minute. It's essentially a 20-minute drive to the west, a 20-minute drive to the east, and a 20-minute drive north. And I'm pretty much hit a game store. There's quite a few options out in my area, so that's always a nice thing to have that option.
Yeah,
Typically, I
not too
go
bad.
to the one out to the west of me, if you will, because I have an account there, and I get a discount. They have a really good rewards program, and
Nice.
so I usually go there. But like I said, if push ever came to shove, there's always a bunch of options, and there's a a bunch of magic type shops too around me. So overall, there's probably half a dozen different locations that are 20 to 30 minutes away from me that give me that little bit of flexibility to go to. So that's nice for me.
Yeah, not too bad. My main issue is that my gaming schedule has to go later than most of these places are willing to stay open, which I don't blame them for at all. But when most of my gaming has to take place, after dinner and the kids are getting ready for bed, or after helped got the kids to bed, it's already 9 o'clock, and it's
hmm hmm
where are you gonna go when your time opens up at 9 o'clock at night? Uh,
Very true.
so like maybe someday, like I said, when the kids are older, I'll be able to have a little more flexibility. But for right now, just it's just not my lifestyle to be able to make it out for a whole lot of gaming. So that's why I have every other week I set up invite people to come to my place to game. And
hmm
so we did do that last week, and actually it was a pretty actually we talked about the weekend, and I wasn't thinking about the week before that. And last Thursday we got a bunch of gaming in. I had three of my friends come over and we played. We started. We were waiting for one person to show up. So actually, no, there was a fifth person who was supposed to come. We were sort of waiting to see if they would show up. So I taught my friends Haggis, which is the like the 2 to 3 player ladder game from
Hmm.
Boards and Cards. Um, so that was pretty neat. We didn't actually play a whole lot of it, but I just basically showed them a couple rounds so I could see how it works. A really interesting game that I don't get out to play very much. But the fact that it's essentially themeless, while would help in certain situations where some people would not be as comfortable with a theme-heavy game. More casual gamers would probably like it. That lack of a theme sort of sucks a little of the interest out of it for me. Um, I find that I really am attached to the theme in games to make them more interesting. But we also played a game of Survive. We played a couple rounds of For Sale. Um, we played a couple rounds of Love Letter, or one round of Love Letter really, and ended up with a little Cards Against Humanity. So it was a pretty packed night considering it didn't start until 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Well, very nice, very nice. No, I love haggis. My only thing, well, just for starters, that's probably one of the only trick-taking games I'm really a big fan of. Growing up, I played hearts and spades and euchre and all those the generic type trick taking games. But once I started getting into hobby gaming, I played Tichu. I played Haggis. I own a copy of that, and I've played a Chronicles, another one that I don't mind. But as far as trick taking games and ladder climbing games type, that's probably one of my favorites. The only downfall for that for me is the fact that it only plays three. I wish it would play more, but at the same time, I could also see some difficulties with that rule change. So
Yeah, well, I guess if you want to go up to four, you have Tichu. I've always been a fan of trick-taking games. I like Spades. I've had a lot of fun with that one. And actually, with my in-laws, they have one that they call Cinch that they play. That's pretty much the game that they play out in their area there in sort of central western Pennsylvania, um, which is a really fun game to play when I go out there. But yeah, besides that, the basic card games, or I haven't played. I mean, I barely can. It's sort of like a trick-taking game, but the latter games I kind of barely consider trick-taking games. But I guess there are some, designed ones that are out there, like what Clubs I think is one that was put out by
hmm
North Star, I want to say. Um, but it's
yes,
just that style of game. If I'm with my friends, I'm going to break out a game. I'm going to break out one of my, sort of bigger themed, rather than this, like let's play this card game. If we're gonna play a
right.
card game, let's, we can play like spades or something, or play some
Yep.
poker. Um,
Hmm.
so, like, I like that style of game, but it's not, gonna be my choice really. If I'm gonna play with my gaming friends, for with some non-gaming people who might be scared away by miniatures and 20-page rule books and stuff, then a good deck of cards is always still a good option. But
Agreed. Agreed.
yeah, mostly I bought Haggis because I was thinking it was at the time I was really looking for a game to play with my wife,
Okay.
because she wasn't into gaming at all before we got together, and my dedication to it, I sort of dragged her into a bit. She doesn't mind gaming, like, um, but she's not like a real passionate about it or anything, and will play with me, like I said, about once a week when we can manage it. And so at the time, I was looking for games that I thought might be interesting for her, and so this one seemed like a simple one. Um, but and it was okay, but in the end, we I managed to find a hit on with the Lord of the Rings card game, like I mentioned earlier, and so we've played that one quite a bit, and so that's my pretty much spouse gaming game, which it's actually a really great one for that, because those LCGs, uh, and I don't know if that one in particular or not, but they really shine when you've got one person that you can really go back and forth with and get into it with, because if you're picking up new people all the time, like they're gonna first of all, you have to hand them a deck that you made, and then they're gonna be like, I don't know what any of this does or is supposed to do.
Hmm.
And if you get one person that you play with all the time, then you just skip by all the learning, and just everybody knows what they're doing. They make their own deck, and it becomes much more of an interactive affair rather than it's like, what's this card do again? Oh, that one you want to use in this situation and that situation, and basically walking someone through how to play the game all the time. It just takes a lot of time to get up to speed with those card games, and with as much gaming as I do, it's hard to find someone who you can consistently play with enough to get up to speed with.
Nope, I definitely agree. And the biggest reason I bought it is because it was on sale. That's the And once again, I always typically almost always do research before I buy a game. But I saw it was on sale, and I asked the store owner how long it was going to be on sale. He's like, "Oh, probably for the next week or so." And so I went home and I did some research, and it was I think I got it for like $5. And
Jeez,
so
you
I
can't
was
go
just like,
wrong.
yeah, I was like, yeah. From what I've read, people like it, and I didn't have a lot of trick taking game. Well, ladder climbing trick taking. I didn't have a lot of those at the time, and and so I picked it up. Unfortunately, my gaming group that lives in my town, none of them are big ladder climbing or trick taking type fans. They like the themes, and they like Euros, so
Hmm.
they're not big on just a straight up card game. So, but at the same time, my older brother who lives in Boston, I get him to play it. He's a big euchre fan, and so he really enjoyed that. Him and his wife, and then there's a few people at my work during my lunch break that like trick taking games and ladder climbing games. We played T2 there, and so I brought this one in kind of as another option. That was a cool a fun add on, if you will, to our game list over at lunch break.
Yeah, I'm
So
definitely for that.
hmm and so that it's one of those games that I don't regret buying, but at the same time it doesn't get to see the table as much. Like I said, because my immediate group is not big on card games.
Right. Yeah, well,
So
fortunately, it's got a really small form factor and a really low price point, so I definitely have no problems like having it around for, a relatively rare occasion that it'll come to the table. And
exactly.
sometimes, like if you have three people, there's, you know, not that many games that are fantastic for three, especially if you want something competitive. So,
Very
and
true.
tough to go wrong if the situation is right.
No, I agree completely. I agree completely. And I am a big proponent of small box games, if you will. I have just about every Z-Man small box card game that they made, like No Thanks. Looking over there, No Thanks. I have Hanabi, the original printing.
Well,
Saboteur is a really fun group game. I have Colorado and Amazonas. So I mean, I like those smaller box games that they fit a decent game into a small box, and I've always been a big fan. Hence why I like the going back the multiple card thing, the multiple options on a single card. I
hmm.
love having a lower component count, but at the same time having a really in-depth good strategy. And not to say that a lot of those small games add that, but at the same time, they're good fillers, and they give you options rather than just roll a die and move your pawn, if you will. So
Right. Yeah, speaking of small games, I've gotten in on a few of the micro game Kickstarters that had been coming up the last couple months, um, especially some of the Tasty Minstrel ones.
hmm
And we'll waiting to see. I haven't gotten any of them in yet, but the small price point, small form factor, portable, hopefully should be relatively like quick playing. And it seems like I said, like the perfect type of filler type game. And if the gameplay can back it up, which is always the danger with Kickstarters, you don't really know. but but then
it's very
again,
true.
um, I usually just end up doing web research before I buy a game anyway. So it's not very often that I get to play a game and then decide to buy it based on the play. It's usually research and just knowing whether that sounds interesting or whether I think I'll like it or not. And of
Mhm.
course, listening to the opinions of some of the reviewers out there. Um, but yeah, I'll look forward to getting those in. I think the first one, like Coin Age, is supposed to be coming out in around May. Yeah, I got Coin Age, I got Templar Intrigue, and This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Two to Four of Us from Tasty Minstrel, and I
Mhm.
also backed Province. I think what was it called? This another one by a company that I can't remember. It's pretty sneaky getting these games, saying, oh, you can have it for like $5, and like, oh, okay, $5 isn't much, but if you put out like a set of like for $20, like here you get these 4 games for $20, I'd probably be like, yeah, that's too much. But you put them out individually.
No, agreed. Yeah, and that's a really cool option that the micro game genre kind of offers. So and I was half tempted to back Tiny App Kingdoms, but part of me was just like, I've spent so much money on other Kickstarters. I mean, I was in Redemption Roll, I was in for Euphoria. That ironically, I don't know if you know much about it. The dice placement, dice were where you're trying to essentially you roll your dice and you put them on the board, and then as an action, and then another action you have the option to take them off and to gain resources and abilities also, and to get your dice back as workers. And has really cool components, really really good in-depth game, but it just wasn't for me. And I actually ended up once I got it, I ended up selling off my copy.
Oh, wow.
But you know, I, for me, Kickstarters are they're come and go. I get some good ones, I get some bad ones, and due to some budgeting, conflicts, I wasn't able to get a lot of those micro game Kickstarters, and that's another reason why I didn't get Tiny Epic Kingdoms. And another reason for that, though, being the fact that I have 8 Minute Empire. I don't know if you're familiar with
Oh,
that one by Red Raven Games,
I haven't played it.
and it's a decent game. It's a cube pusher. You're getting cards and you can move your cubes. And I kind of felt that Tiny Epic Kingdoms had a little bit of that going on,
Hmm.
because what you're doing in Tiny Epic Kingdoms is you are um, taking certain actions on this I guess a tree almost. There's this tree of different actions that you can take, and once you take it, no one else can take it until the board, the action board, if you will, is full. So, and all you're doing is you're moving cubes and trying to get area majority. It's an area majority cube
Hmm.
type pusher game, and I have 2 or 3 of those, and I was just like,
Nice. Don't
as
really
cool
need
as this
another
game
one.
looks, yeah, as cool as this game looks, I don't really need another one. So, and then that's usually a lot of times how I talk myself out of a lot of these Kickstarters is like, number one, how often am I going to play this? Number two, is my gaming group going to like it? And number three, do I have something that's similar? And so I always kind of weigh those options, and like I said, also due to the money, it's just like I'm not sure,
Right. Yeah.
and
Well,
typically I'll back out.
yeah. Sort of. You always get tempted. There's some of them, they look so great, but it's like, I could spend X amount of dollars on this now and wait like a year to get it, or I could buy a game now and I could play it for a year and then buy that one when it comes out,
Hmm.
if it still sounds good and I still want it.
Hmm.
Um, but these $5 ones is like, it's just it hits my threshold for, I'll throw some cash at that and see what happens. Now I'm really looking forward to actually getting them. But I'm trying not to think about it too much because
Right.
it makes the waiting that much harder.
Nope, I agree completely. I agree completely. I was that way with a Dungeon Roll, which is a decent game. Don't get me wrong. Probably not my favorite little quick filler, but it's a good game. And then I also got Dungeon Attack, which was on Kickstarter not too long ago, and
Okay.
that's another dice rolling type one. That was I think $7, something like that. And so I was in kind of your mentality where it's only a few bucks. So, and I tossed that their way, and that one, sadly, it plays really similar to Dungeon Roll,
Oh, really?
and so I was kind of disappointed in that aspect. but at the same time, it's the same price I pay for, a fast food meal or something
Sure.
like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
It's yeah. Not that you want to just be throwing your money around left and right, but it's really just in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much. So
right?
it's
Exactly.
it's tough to feel too bad about if it's not that great. But
Yep, I agree completely.
all right. Well, so what do you think? We've had a nice chat here. Think it's pretty good for our test run.
Not bad, not bad, and hopefully we'll be ready for the next one coming up. So,
Yeah, for the real thing, right? So yeah, we'll sign off, and I guess we'll see if we can do this thing for real sometime, and maybe
um,
we can send the link to this off to a few people to review and maybe get some feedback. But I think we're
sounds
doing
good.
pretty well.
I can't complain. All right,
All right, it was good chatting with you, Mike.
you as well. We'll catch you later.
Yep, have a good one.
All right, you too. Bye.